Hello, good people. Welcome back to the Kuhb Games YouTube channel. Today, I'm bringing you the PACMAN deck that I used to get first place in the modified GOAT format tournament. What was that, Friday, June 28th, I believe it was. There aren't very many, well, there aren't any major modified tournaments, so, you take what you get. Not a big one, but we still got the W. But yeah, JDZ commented on my recent PACMAN video, not in modified, that from the video, it looked like PACMAN was sort of close. I kind of agree, kind of don't. It has its own flaws, of course, but he got my brain moving a little bit. And one of the things that I've thought about PACMAN for a while is one of the reasons it can't win is because it can't close out games quickly enough. You can definitely build yourself up into a position where you have a ton of card advantage against your opponent, but you take so long to kill, you give your opponent inevitability to draw that heavy storm, draw BLS, draw whatever they need to kill you. And if you haven't already drawn the backup to take care of that, you're just not going to win. It's as simple as that. So one of the things I've been bouncing around for a little bit was just a minimal burn package in the deck to help it, sort of get over the line a little bit quicker. I didn't want to go full on burn. I wanted to actually stick to PACMAN and just add in burn cards that naturally fit the strategy. So like I had already included 3 copies of Nightmare Wheel in the deck. It stops attacks. It gets in chip damage. So even, back when I first started working on the deck, I noticed that the deck could use a little bit more chip damage. So Nightmare Wheel just fit in perfectly. From there, of course, we already have a PACMAN burn card in Stealth Bird. Also, the art on Stealth Bird is amazing. I love this art, so love to include the card in the deck. We also have Ceasefire that was already in the deck. It protects from Nobleman of Crossout. It deals chip damage. It just fits naturally into the deck. Add 1 copy of Magic Cylinder. Also fits naturally in the deck. In the same vein of Nightmare Wheel, it stops attacks. And again, it also gets in that chip damage. And then 3 copies of Wave Motion Cannon to finish out the burn package. You play a longer game than almost any deck in GOAT format. Probably longer than any deck in GO format. You are going late. So Wave Motion Cannon sitting on the board, just racking up those counters, is going to kill your opponent. And if they choose to deal with Wave Motion Cannon, then they're not dealing with any of your other floodgates. And you're really going to tie up your opponent's resources. So very minimal burn package here. But I think all of the cards just naturally fit into the deck. And we get to keep it as a PACMAN deck rather than a burn deck that happens to play some PACMAN cards. Worked out for me really well. Went undefeated on the day. Only lost 1 single game. And that was in round 1 to burn, which burn is going to be a bad matchup. You'll actually notice in the side here, I have 3 whole copies of Solemn Wishes because I was not going to play around with burn. Someone told me that burn was doing well in modified goats. So last minute inclusion of 3 Solemn Wishes, just wasn't going to deal with that, but lost game 1 as expected, but was able to take all of the other games from there on out in the tournament. So want to talk a little bit more about the deck because this is a deck that I just love. Of course, we have 3 copies of the Camel, best card in the deck by far. 3 copies of Golem Sentry, not Solemn Gentry. 3 copies of Swarm of Scarabs. I know I had been splitting Swarm of Scarabs with Medusa Worm, doing a 2-1 split because I was playing Giant Rat with Exile Force, but I actually decided to go with Mystic Tomato because it searches up Stealth Bird, can still get Sangan to help you get your Lakuta or your Golem Sentry if you want, but Tomato searching up Stealth Bird I thought would be relevant. It also just directly searches Swarm of Scarabs, directly searches Swarm of Locusts, so decided to go with the Mystic Tomato with just a 1-of, but I think that's totally fine. I don't want to add too many monsters. And that just kicks Medusa Worm out of the deck, essentially. Swarm of Scarabs has a higher defense, same attack. No reason to play the Medusa Worm, unless you want an extra Swarm of Scarabs, but I feel like with 3 Golem Sentry, 3 Swarm of Scarabs, you don't really need a 7th effect that sort of deals with monsters. So that's kind of where I landed. Of course, we do have our stall floodgates. We have 1 level limit area B, 1 gravity bind. These are limited to 1 in modified format. It's one thing that sort of gave me a little bit of pause when trying to work on this in the modified format, but, I realized we still have Swords of Revealing Light, we still have Messenger of Peace, we'll be totally fine. So essentially just replacing the second copy of Level Limit and Gravity Bind with Messenger of Peace, alongside the swords for our floodgates to stop attacks. Of course, we have Graceful Charity, Pot of Greed. Delinquent Duo is banned in this format, so none of that here. Already talked about the 3-wave motion cannons. Not sure if I would go down to 2 on this. There's a potential that you do want to do that. The card came in clutch, though. A lot. I really do like this card. Just not sure if 3 is quite the number that you want to go for. Still playing the split of 2 Book of Moon, 2 Compulsory, Evacuation Device. I think both of these cards fit very well in this deck. They stop attacks, they provide tempo, and they stop Thousand Eyes Restrict, and that is huge. This deck cannot ever beat a Thousand Eyes Restrict that gets to stick on the board. Ever. So, opted to include those. Both of them came up. They were all fantastic. 2 copies of Nobleman of Crossout. We already talked about these. 3 copies of Solemn Judgment, of course, and 1 copy of Magic Jammer. Been a big fan of this card in the deck. Heavy Storm, obviously, just a big problem. And generally, you're going to be building up so much card advantage that you don't really care to discard a card to activate it. So I've been liking 1 copy. More than 1 would probably be a little too clunky. So I don't know if I would recommend more of that. But yeah, definitely 1 copy of Magic Jammer. Of course, we have Mirror Force. Ceasefire, Magic Cylinder, we already talked about, and of course the Nightmare Wheels. So the side deck I kind of threw together. Haven't been paying too close attention to modified goats. Just kind of went off of what some people had said about like zombies and burn doing well. And yeah, we have 1 copy of Lava Golem. This is my chosen answer to Jinzo. I did see a Jinzo actually. Jinzo was resolved against me a couple of times. Yeah, a couple of times in the tournament. Unfortunately, I didn't get to Lava Golem it, but I think Lava Golem, just supplementing the burn package, is actually a pretty decent sideboard choice for this deck. Played 1 Breaker along with Swarm of Locusts and MST to deal with Decree, which I also did have to deal with in the tournament. We have the 3rd copy of Messenger of Peace in case we play against any aggro decks. Snatch Steal, also an out to Jinzo. And just good against the aggro decks pushing through more damage. I think it makes even more sense with the burn plan, even though you give your opponent 1,000 life. Whenever you take their monster, generally you're going to be attacking for a lot more than that, so it just helps get your opponent dead. We have 1 copy of Token Thanksgiving, just to deal with, you know, any scapegoat, control decks, whatever. Also good against burn. So, versatile inclusion that I decided to have in here. 3 copies of Needle Sealing. Very big fan of this card in PACMAN. I'm normally actually main decking like 1 or 2 copies, but I had to cut it to get all of the burn package in there, and just mostly left it in the side. It's very good against the scapegoat decks, of course. It's good against aggro decks because they're always just going to be summoning face up, and you're not going to be doing that. So Needle Sealing, fantastic card in this deck. 1 copy of Curse of Royal. This card, you know, you expect a lot of people to start bringing in Dust Tornadoes and stuff post side to deal with your floodgates, so Curse of Royal stops that. It also stops Solemn Judgment that's activated on one of your spell or trap cards. So Curse of Royal, a pretty cool card. It came up a few times, so I think I'm still happy to have 1 in the side. Not sure if I would really go above that. I'll talk about the 1 copy of Threatening Roar. Never came up. Threatening Roar and Lava Golem I think were the only cards that I never played in this tournament. I'm not sure if I would keep this in here. I know some people still play Reasoning Gate in Modified, so maybe it's fine, but maybe you could just, you know, put something else in that slot. 3 copies of Solemn Wishes. I flipped 2 of these against Burn in round 1, and you play a long game. You just sit there and you gain 1,000 life points every single turn. The Burn player is not going to be able to beat you. Also, add in the fact that Deslakuta draws a card. If you have, I mean, even just 1 of these on the field with the Deslakuta is nuts against Burn. So very happy that I decided to side this card. It worked out, and I would probably side it going forward just for Burn. But wanted to take a good bit of time to go over the deck, sort of go through my thought process on what I was doing and thinking whenever I was putting together this Burn package, and kind of trying to push forward with the deck to see if it was any good. Now, obviously, this was modified GOAT. This was not the regular GOAT format, and there are 2 very, very, very key differences. Ring of Destruction and BLS are banned in modified GOAT. Both of those cards are very good against this deck, specifically BLS. BLS is a very hard card to deal with. So, that in mind, I'm not sure that this deck would be pushed any farther into playability with the Burn package. in the regular GOAT format, but if you're looking to get into modified goats, I think this is a fantastic deck to pick up. It's a whole lot of fun if you've got the patience for it, and I believe there's going to be a ban list update soon. So get hyped for that and get some matches in. But that's enough of me talking about the deck. Gonna go through a match, so we're not just sitting here just talking about the deck for 10 minutes. If you all fast forwarded through this, cool. If not, also cool. Thanks for sticking around. Let's get a match. All right, so realized after I said we were going to get a match with it that there is no ladder for Modified GOAT, and it's a lot harder to get a match whenever you are outside of the tournaments. So just going to bring you a replay from one of the matches of the tournament. Didn't choose the finals to showcase here because this is one of the more actual faster paced matches. The part of the finals gets really grindy, and we just kind of sit there for turn after turn after turn, what Pac-Man does from time to time. And I didn't think you all would want to see, 30 minutes of boring. So here's a bit of a faster one, but still kind of shows off what I wanted to do with the deck as far as adding in the burn package and stuff like that. Sort of shows how potent that is. So yeah, let's get into it. Playing against Not So Fast, the person that played the Dark Magician deck to the top 8 of the PWCQ. Here we start off with a great hand. Of course, we have to draw our 6th. We get a Stealth Bird, which is pretty cool. We have a Ceasefire to protect our play. We have a Nightmare Wheel to protect our play. And of course, we have Wave Motion Cannon. So I was actually playing pretty unafraid of Heavy Storm in this tournament if I had a hand like this, because I kind of need all of these pieces on the board. I don't want to wait on Wave Motion Cannon because it doesn't make sense. I want Ceasefire to protect from turn 1 Nobleman of Crossout because I want to keep my dudes. And I need Nightmare Wheel to also protect my dudes. I knew I was playing against zombies. That's another reason why I wanted to pick this match. Because zombies is one of the decks that's been doing well. So it kind of shows you how Pac-Man matches up against it. So I am going to set everything and just set the Des Lakuta. Reasoning behind the Lakuta is, I want to draw into Solemn Judgment as quickly as possible. I have an answer to monsters with the Nightmare Wheel, and we can just kind of go from there. And I don't think Stealth Bird is necessarily the one that you want to play on turn 1 in a lot of matchups. Opponent summons Regenerating Mummy, sets 3. We're just going to Nightmare Wheel it to protect our Lakuta. We draw Level Limit Area B, which is amazing. One of, obviously. So, always love to draw that. I'm going to flip the Lakuta, draw Mirror Force, which is also pretty good. I'm just going to activate Level Limit, and now I'll set the Stealth Bird. Because at this point, I've got the monster locked down with Nightmare Wheel. I also have Level Limit Area B locking down the monsters. And I've got this Wave Motion Cannon going. So, just kind of want to get card advantage with the Des Lakuta to draw into more and more answers, while also just killing my opponent quickly. So, instead of setting the Swarm of Scarabs, which would be like a normal Pac-Man play, we're just going to set the Stealth Bird, and we're going to try to ride it to victory. Go to the opponent's turn. MST is the level limit, so unfortunate, but also fine. We do have Mirror Forces back up, but we're going to lose our Des Lakuta. Not a big deal. We draw into another Stealth Bird as Wave Motion Cannon ticks up to 2. I'm going to flip our first Stealth Bird, set it, and now we're going to set the second Stealth Bird. Opponent's already at 6,000. Next turn, they're going to go to 5,500. We could actually just activate Wave Motion Cannon, activate both of these Stealth Birds, and that's going to put our opponent to, let's see, 4,000, 1,500. Yeah, it'll put our opponent to 500, and then they have to deal with this Nightmare Wheel, or it'll just kill them. And that would be the fastest Pac-Man win of all time, as far as I know. So, set the Mirror Force. We've got the birds down. Opponent tributes up for Ryukoki. I don't really care about that too much. Here, my opponent attacks, and I flip Mirror Force, and I chain Ceasefire. My idea is, now that this Nightmare Wheel is gone, Ceasefire plus Wave Motion Cannon plus double Stealth Bird actually just kills my opponent on the next turn. So, opponent's going to take 2,000 here. And then they lose their monsters. They're at 4,000. We don't even need both Stealth Birds to stick around. But the opponent does have a Snatch Steal for a Stealth Bird. Okay, that's fine. We still have lethal on the next turn with Wave Motion Cannon, Stealth Bird. But our opponent has other ideas. And they Raigeki break the Wave Motion Cannon. So, our opponent's at 4,000, which, it's still a 4-turn clock with Stealth Bird. Still pretty good. And we're at a good 8,000, so we don't really care about them having a stealth bird. And the only card they have is this one back row that they haven't used. So I'm just going to set the stealth bird. No reason to flip it up into attack and just let Not So Fast ram another stealth bird into it, and just set the swarm of scarabs. So we're going to take 1,000, attacks into the swarm of scarabs, which of course can't attack over a 1,000 defense, but yeah, you definitely want to attack it. So like that play, and then Nobleman of Crossout, the card drawn, is going to get our stealth bird. So our clock is not online anymore, but we do have this Mystic Tomato that can attack. Activate Swarm of Scarabs. Just going to attack in with it, playing around a potential Torrential Tribute, Mirror Force, or something like that, and there is a Mirror Force. So a lot with PACMAN is you want to assess what you should actually attack with, because your opponent is almost incentivized to kill everything. Because everything sticking on the board is generally going to be a problem for your opponent. So I assess that I want my clock to be as big as possible, so I want to keep the Mystic Tomato, and also Mystic Tomato can just go get another Swarm of Scarabs, if that's what I feel I need. Or I guess it can't get another stealth bird because they're both gone. But yeah, Mystic Tomato can kind of go get whatever I need. So if I'm going to lose anything, it's going to be the Swarm of Scarabs. And if they let it go through, I can always just set the tomato or something. So this is fine. I'm going to set Tomato and then set Solemn Judgment. I'm not so sure I should have set it, actually. I think maybe there was a chance I should have just summoned that because the opponent does have another copy of Nobleman of Crossout in their deck, and I would rather save my Solemn Judgment for something else. So maybe that was a little bit of a misplay. But here, just going to flip Tomato and attack. Again, if my opponent wants to rip a Heavy Storm off the top of the deck, that's totally fine. But I'm going to set Magic Jammer here, just so it's on for next turn. I'm not sure if that's correct either, because I don't know, what am I really going to be stopping that I can't just set Magic Jammer on the next turn? So probably not supposed to set that there, but it's fine. Opponent sets a monster, we draw Compulse, which is pretty good. I'm going to attack. Ends up being a Sinister Serpent, so that's totally fine. Opponent will just get that back. I'm going to set the Compulse now. Opting to, I remember thinking about this. I opted to not leave up Magic Jammer for one more turn. Basically, I'm like, at this point, Compulse could help me get to a win if I draw a monster that's big enough to attack with the Mystic Tomato. I don't think I have any of those in the deck. I guess I do have Sangan. Sangan would be the only one. But Compulse just helps me deal with a potential removal spell for the Mystic Tomato if our opponent came across something like that. And if they do draw Heavy Storm, I can just use the Solemn Judgment. So I think it's fine. My opponent hasn't shown that they've, gotten the Heavy Storm, but if they draw it, whatever. Here, I'm just going to attack with the Mystic Tomato, expecting it to be Sinister Serpent again. It is. Now I'm not going to set the Book of Moon, and we'll finally leave up this Magic Jammer that I set probably a little bit prematurely. Opponent sets a monster, sets a back row. We draw Nobleman of Crossout and get rid of that Sinister Serpent forever. Now we can finally get an attack in with our Tomato. Opponent has Raigeki Break. I'm going to Compulse the Mystic Tomato now. So we can keep our clock around. I'm totally fine with my opponent going 1 for 1 and just trading with a random Compulse. Now I can just summon the Tomato back out, and I actually don't set it this time, which is correct this time. Set it last time into a potential knock, and like I said before, I don't think that was correct at all. We draw Swarm of Scarabs, which is fantastic because we are going to attack into a Spirit Reaper. So we'll just set the Swarm and pass the turn. Again, leaving up Magic Jammer and Solemn Judgment. I think it's really hard to lose from here. Opponent summons Breaker. I just decided to Solemn it. At this point, we've got 1900. It's very, very likely that I'm going to kill my opponent very soon. So I don't want my opponent to just summon Breaker, get rid of my Solemn Judgment anyway, if they, high roll and hit that instead of the Magic Jammer. And then I'm just left with Magic Jammer to hope to protect me for the game. So just take my chances and go ahead and Solemn the Breaker, get it out of here. We draw Wave Motion Cannon, which is fantastic. So that means our opponent has 1 turn to deal with this, or it just kills them. Because we're going to deal 1900 to the opponent, and they're just going to scoop. So we take game 1. I side in my Messenger of Pieces, stuff like that. And here we see Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, God bless. We got the Trinity of the format, because there's no Delinquent Duo. So just going to lead on Pot of Greed. We draw Deslocuta, Swarm of Scarabs. Okay. A few too many monsters, but we do have this Graceful Charity to sort of remedy that. And now we draw into Floodgates, and it's just fantastic. Now we've got all of our protection in the world. Needle Sealing should be fantastic in this matchup. We have Stealth Bird as a clock, but I'm actually going to pitch the Stealth Bird here. And I think that's totally fine. I can play a card advantage game here and just eventually be able to grind my opponent out. Stealth Bird is not a card that I necessarily want super early. Obviously, it would have worked out in that game one had our opponent not had an answer for the Wave Motion Cannon plus a Snatch Steal for the Stealth Bird. But generally, you want to pull ahead first by just gaining some card advantage and then burning the opponent out. Burn is a plan B, essentially. So I'm going to play Scared of Heavy Storm now because I have other cards to protect me. So no need to, I don't need all of these pieces to be on the board right now, especially the Needle Sealing. I think setting Needle Sealing here would just be a mistake. And if the opponent does Heavy Storm, I could just compulse my Des Lakuta to protect it from an attack, and then next turn, just reset it and set everything. So, Nobleman of Crossout, you see why Compulse is in the deck here. When we're not playing against a Thousand Eyes Restrict deck, it just protects the monsters from Noblemen and attacks and stuff like that, and it's fantastic. So, let's go ahead and set the Lakuta again, and let's just set a Nightmare Wheel. And the opponent doesn't play anything, just passes the turn. So here's an easy card draw for me. The opponent's going to activate Torrential Tribute. Don't really care. Gonna get my plus off of the draw anyway, and I have another Lakuta. So game's already looking good. We draw Solemn Judgment, which is just fantastic. I probably should have attacked with the Lakuta, honestly. It gives up the information of what it is, but I think that's totally fine. I've got it protected, 800 different ways. So, yeah, I probably should have attacked with the Lakuta. Missed out on 500 points of damage there, but it's probably fine. So, pass to the opponent. They summon Pyramid Turtle. Don't care about that. I have Gravity Bind, of course, and then I have Swarm of Scarabs that can follow up and kill it. Draw Messenger of Peace. Just more floodgates, more protection. You love to see it. And that's basically what this deck wants to do. Just sit here, gain card advantage, lock the opponent out until they just can't play Yu-Gi-Oh! And then you bop them for 500 over and over and over. So draw a card with a Lakuta, set the Swarm of Scarabs, pass the turn. We should be good here. We have a Solemn Judgment for almost specifically Heavy Storm. Or a card that you're about to see from the opponent, which is Mobius. We definitely have to deal with that one. That is essentially Heavy Storm. So we're going to Solemn Judgment here and just hope our opponent doesn't have a Heavy to follow up. I imagine they already would have played it had they had one. But now they're going to Raigeki Break, get rid of the Lakuta. They pitch Vampire Lord, so I'm like, okay. They could definitely have a Book of Life for that or something. We don't really care about that. We still have this Gravity Bind. We've got Nightmare Wheel. We're good. But they just set another backer on pass. Here, I'm just going to summon Sangan. If the opponent has, well, I guess they can't have Torrential. But if they, did still have a Torrential in their deck somehow and they were cheating, Sangan wouldn't really care. It wouldn't be a +1 here, necessarily. So, and Sangan gets in for, more damage than anything else. I do opt to play around Mirror Force, and I think this is correct, by not flipping up the Swarm and attacking. So I said I should have attacked with the Des Lakuta earlier before I set it, and I do think that is correct. But here, I may as well hold on to the Swarm of Scarabs if I can, because while the opponent's not playing monsters, eventually they have to start, either summoning monsters to protect their life points or start setting or something, and then Swarm of Scarabs can turn online, gain even more card advantage, take my opponent's monsters out, and the Sangan can eventually get there. So I like not attacking with that there. That's totally fine. Pass to the opponent. They have a Sangan of their own, and they're actually going to attack the face down. I guess hoping, that it's a Lakuta. That's the only... I guess it does also get over Swarm of Locust as well, but it's either third Lakuta or Locust is all it gets over. And I'm just going to flip up my Swarm of Scarabs. The opponent activates Snatch Steal to try to take it, which would be good, but we play that Compulse Book of Moon suite, and the Book of Moon's going to come in clutch here. Just flip the Swarm down. Here, I opt to just go ahead, flip it, get this Sangan off the board. I don't really care if my opponent searches for something. They're generally only summoning one monster a turn unless they have a Book of Life or whatever, but Book of Life really isn't going to get them there. So Let's just pop the Sangan so we can start getting in some damage here. I should flip the Swarm down. I do. Okay, so still playing around the Mirror Force. I like that play. We have drawn another Solemn Judgment, and that's fantastic. So now I can set Needle Sealing, which is online if they just summon one monster. And we have, of course, Solemn Judgment back up. We still have this Gravity Bind on the board, just wreaking havoc against the opponent. So they're actually going to activate Raigeki Break here and take out the Gravity Bind, which is totally fine by me. I've got Swords and Messenger of Peace back up in hand, so I can probably stall whatever they want to do this turn, and then just get down another Floodgate and be totally fine. So here they do show the Book of Life. They get back the Vampire Lord, which can attack now because there's no Gravity Bind. And now they show a second Book of Life to get back Pyramid Turtle. So Pyramid Turtle's going to attack over this. I sit and think for a little bit, and I just let the Swarm of Scarabs go. So I have this Golem Sentry that essentially does the same thing, and I also have Needle Sealing. So my plan here is to actually Needle Sealing, getting rid of the Vampire Lord, and then I can lock it down with Messenger of Peace or Swords of Revealing Light whenever it comes back, and then I can just bounce it back to their hand after I've already cleared the Pyramid Turtle or something. So now they attack over the face down, and I'm just going to Nightmare Wheel. Okay, yeah, no, this is fine too. So we can just sit here. We're not going to attack, but this Golem Sentry can just bounce Pyramid Turtle until the end of time. And our opponent's going to take 500 until they deal with this Nightmare Wheel. I'm totally fine with that. And we can push for something a little bit bigger with Needle Sealing that doesn't get, Vampire Lord off of the battlefield immediately, and then it just comes right back. So I kind of like just going with the Nightmare Wheel play instead of going straight for Needle Sealing. Save that for a little bit later. We draw Compulse here, which is fantastic. So now we could activate Golem Sentry, bounce the Pyramid Turtle, compulse the Vampire Lord, and then we can just start attacking if we want to go down that route. But I'm just going to bounce the Pyramid Turtle first. Since the Vampire Lord is locked down, move my Sangan to defense, set Compulse. Not even going to activate the Messenger of Peace. I mean, it's not doing anything against Pyramid Turtle. So, and we've already got the Vampire Lord locked down. We have Compulse, Solemn Judgment, Needle Sealing. We're totally fine not locking ourselves out of plays here. So the opponent summons Breaker, and now I think is a good chance to use the Needle Sealing. I get to keep my Solemn Judgment around. I get to keep my Golem Sentry. Sangan can go get whatever I want it to. We can go get a Stealth Bird to try to end the game. We can go get a Lakuta to start drawing more cards. And this Vampire Lord coming back on their standby is not a problem again because we do have Swords of Revealing Light and Messenger of Peace to lock it down. And then we can just, bounce it with the Golem Sentry. And what are they going to do? Summon a monster, get it bounced, keep getting bounced, or I guess they could Book of Life, sacrifice it for Vampire Lord, and then, we're still back at bounce the Vampire Lord over and over. So I ought to get Lakuta here. I'm not sure about this. I may have actually sided out a Stealth Bird. I think that's what I did. Generally, against the more aggressive strategy, as I've cut some amount of the burn package to bring in more lockdown cards. So I probably didn't have another Stealth Bird in the deck, and that's why I got the Lakuta, and that's totally fine. Draw another Needle Sealing. I'm not ever going to complain about that. Here I actually do summon the Lakuta first and attack. So we did it right this time. Love to see that. Just attack in with both. Activate Messenger of Peace. Set the Needle Sealing. Pass the turn. We should be good to win from here. And yeah, they draw a card. Decide we're done here. It would be really, really hard for them to come back in this situation. But yeah, so that kind of shows you how powerful the small burn engine can be. Most Pac-Man decks would not be able to exert the amount of force that this one did in game one here. Yeah, so I'm pretty proud of the pieces that I sort of put together here, and I look forward to playing it a lot more in the future. I know we've had a lot of Pac-Man on the channel recently. I know a lot of people don't like Pac-Man, but sorry, I like the deck. And as it develops, I'm probably gonna post more content of Pac-Man. So yeah, that's gonna be the video for today. Don't do a whole lot of these replays, but here you go. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll be back with the next one.